Important subject, a lot of ground covered over the past 2.5 years. Important ground, a lot will be discussed today. Thank you for the introduction. All of the issues you've raised, I hope, will be on today's agenda. What's happened over the past years? We firmly believe we have a safer post-trade space. There's more collateral in the system, more than 2 billion euros more than there was 4 years ago. But work doesn't stop. A lot is going on. Although the big regulatory framework's been put into place, what can you expect, and what am I expecting to do in the next year or so? Well, there's going to be a fitness check of regulatory reporting. It's been a bugbear for the firms ever since I started working in the Commission 32 years ago. Too many reports, overlapping reports to supervisors, dud data. What happens to the data? What do the supervisors do with this pile of stuff that you employ expensive resources to go through and to report? So fitness check. There's a public consultation out, March next year. We hope to have a report ready by June on the follow-up, the input that's received, the workshops that we're holding. What are we going to do with regulatory reporting? Does this myriad of regulation actually fit together? Is it efficient? Is it cost efficient? Is it adequate, and is it effective? So that's one thing I'll be looking at next year, and I hope to have that discussion with you in the coming months. We're going to review the CSDR. It seems like yesterday that we adopted it. We'll review the CSDR, the famous Article 75 review. Did we address settlement issues? Did we address efficiency and access adequately in the CSDR? So that's something that's very, very high on the agenda of my staff. Will we get a report that helps, that responds to issues and concerns that we know are out there? And we'll be reaching out to colleagues through public reach out in the course of next year. Securities financing transactions, that's also out there. Level 2 measures. When will the reporting be kicked off? There's a level 2 measure. We hope for rapid adoption soon so that the firms know what they need to report and when. Another issue on our radar screen. FCD, SFD, Securities Financing Directive, Financial Collateral Directive. Long time since that was put in place, but very, very important for legal certainty. We will probably review those directives. Are they still up to speed? Do they really reflect in their definitions of finality current market trends? We're not sure. We're getting a lot of feedback. The ECB has some issues about the current approach that they adopt to securities settlement finality. Collateral transfers, clearing orders, are they still up to speed with these very old definitions and the methodology we have in the SFD, FCD? A lot of work is going on out there. And there's clearing. Clearing was one of the issues at the heart of the crisis. A lot of work's been put into this. We are still implementing, we're still phasing in certain requirements of the EMIR regulation. There are already issues about that. Deadlines have transpired. We still haven't solved issues for pension fund exemptions, because that needs to be resolved in the refit regulation that we hope to finalize within the next month or so. Physically settled FX swaps, how do we treat those? So far we've been working on the basis of regulatory forbearance with ESMA. When we know that there will be new rules, but the new rules are not yet in place, our supervisors and ESMA have agreed to adopt regulatory forbearance and take a step back. Very sensible. Very, very sensible to do that. And then there's supervision. Supervision of EU CCPs and supervision of third country CCPs with one objective only. One objective. And that is to safeguard the financial stability of Europe's financial system. That work is progressing very, very rapidly. The Austrian and the Bulgarian presidency have essentially closed down the third country part. Today we hope to finalize the part on EU CCP supervision And we hope to make sure that that piece of legislation runs through the so-called trilogue discussions with Parliament and Council before the end of this year. Good progress, but there are still some technical details that needs to be spelt out in discussions. But that's not the end. This is the end. This is what happens if a central counterparty, a clearinghouse, a globally financial systemic entity runs into default. Because what we've done over the past 5 years is concentrate a lot of risk in a handful of global clearinghouses. We've removed risk from banks' balance sheets and we've moved them into central clearinghouses. The problem is that nobody knows what to do if there's a default. We have procedures and processes. Some of them are triggered 3 weeks ago in Scandinavia, when NASDAQ had a default of one of its private clearing members. But the exact rules and processes need to be laid down. That is something that we've put on hold in the Council for the past 7 months, because before we can progress on the Commission's proposal of November 2016, we need to know who is responsible for taking decisions. And that depends on the EMIR supervision discussion that we hope to finalise soon. So you see the sequencing of everything. The moment the Austrian presidency closes down the EMIR supervision file, it and the Romanian presidency that's incoming will look at CCP recovery and resolution again. The Parliament's ready. The Parliament's ready. Before the summer, it already adopted its opinion. It wants to enter into trilogue discussions, but that's something we will look at shortly. So that's recovery and resolution. And this is just to remind us that post-trade borders extend beyond Europe. There are large, wide international issues we need to get to grips with. I mentioned CCPs. How does our proposed regulation interact with that of other countries? Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and our friends in the United States. How does that work? How does it interact? We need to look at deference. Well, we give the United States 100% deference. They give us 47% back. Well, if I were in that position, I would certainly say I want the status quo. I don't want any change. Things move on. Maybe the deal was not a good deal. You see what I'm doing? Understand. If we need to improve our situation, maybe we need to revise our situation. That is a difficult discussion. Talking to our American friends is not an easy thing. We always have to raise our voice and make sure that we're really heard across the Atlantic. You have to adopt a different negotiating stance. We do that. We know how to do that. And of course, we're preparing, unfortunately, for Brexit. We have the measures in place. Whether it's a soft or a hard Brexit, we know what to do. We know what the market is doing. We're in contact constantly with the market to make sure that we're on top of developments and to make sure that we can actually respond when necessary at the right time, not too early, but at the right time with any measures. But this is the guiding principle of everything and anything we do nowadays in the Commission. Looking ahead at all our challenges, any policy, any regulation needs to be quantified. Not only does it meet our objectives of access, competition, efficiency, regulatory burdens, but can the existence of non-action be quantified? If you can't quantify it, you can't measure it, you can't manage it, we can't regulate it. So a key measure and a key point I'd like to leave with the audience is, if you come to the European Commission and you ask us to regulate away a problem, in the 1970s, the Pavlov reaction is, if there's a problem, we'll adopt a directive. The first thing we tell the industry now is, what are the costs? Quantify the costs of non-action. Without the costs, we will find it extremely difficult to justify any action in the post-trade service at all. So that's a thought I'd like to leave you with. We need to be cost effective, and we need to be aware of what we're trying to regulate and the impact of any regulation.